1.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves shoot 22% from 3, and then Ant's game-winning shot, that clanks off the iron. Final score versus the Bucks, 103-101. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves Postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network, your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow on X at JRBorman13. Jack, lots to get into. The Wolves' terrible shooting night from beyond the arc, plus a career high from Terrence Shannon Jr. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Wolves coming in, had to be feeling good about, trying to bounce back after that loss, considering the Bucks had no Giannis and no Dame. They're two best players on the floor tonight. Got off to a quick 5-0 start, and then just kind of went downhill from there, and it happened pretty quick. Down 12 after the first quarter because they couldn't hit a 3 to save their life. Good news is they did cut the lead. They rally all the way back to go down 1 at halftime. They carried that score into the fourth quarter where they kept it close. Naz Reid, huge 3 in the corner with a minute and a half left, but in the end, final seconds, Brooks Lopez gets fouled. He hits 2 clutch free throws. Bucks go up 2. Ant with the game-winning 3 attempt. That clanks off the iron. Again, final score 103-101. Wolves dropped to 30-25 on the year. Big picture, just to start real quick, Jack. This game, again, I basically said it last game, too, after the loss. Hot team, cold team. When things are good, they're great. When things are bad, it gets ugly. Big picture, it just feels like they still haven't found their rhythm yet this year. Too inconsistent night to night. If you're an opponent playing the Wolves and you see them on your schedule, how happy or how intimidated, how scared are you when you see this team on your schedule? When you're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, what's the thought as an opponent right now?
Clearly not very intimidated. The Bucks felt comfortable sitting Damian Lillard in this game in their last game before the All-Star break, and they let the young guys and the rotation guys go, and they gave the Wolves the business in this game, and this is by far the worst loss of the season for the Timberwolves, at least that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, you look at it right now, the Wolves with these, some bad losses on this kind of stretch of games at home here before the break. They're now 4 games behind the Lakers and the Rockets, who are the 4th and 5th seeds. And they're now half a game behind the Clippers for the 6th spot. And they're only 2.5 games out of being completely out of the playoff picture and the play-in picture. And these are certainly the types of games that you will look at, come the end of the season. And if you're in the play-in tournament by half a game, or instead of playing in the 7-8 game, you're in the 9-10 game. Like, these are 100% the games you come back and look at. You just think Jalen Clark probably missed 4 or 5 layups in this game.
Yeah. Anthony Edwards tonight for Clark.
Anthony Edwards had a lane violation on a Gary Trent Jr. missed free throw.
Yeah.
Ant missed a free throw. Rob Dillingham missed a free throw. There's just plenty of little moments that you can point to that, that are the difference in a game like this. And it's just unfortunate because this should have been a very free win. And, we'll get into some reasons why. But, just a horrible, horrible loss for the Wolves.
Yeah, Rudy, what'd you think of Rudy? I see a couple comments. Rudy missed a couple shots. 20 points, though. 10 of 14, 14 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks. At least a handful of offensive rebounds. I don't have it in front of me, but 5 or 6 offensive rebounds, I want to say. What'd you think of Rudy tonight versus that Lopez matchup? How much did he help or hurt this team tonight, I guess?
Yeah, Rudy's the last guy that I would blame. I thought Rudy Gobert was the best player on the floor tonight, and for pretty much the entire game. 20 points, 14 boards, 4 assists, 2 stocks for Rudy. Played really physically and was just a force on the offensive glass. I have it here. He had 6 offensive rebounds and 8 second chance points for the Timberwolves. And he was phenomenal. I thought, again, the Bucks shot just 42% at the rim on 24 shots. There were 10 of 24 at the rim. Anything below 60% is a really good number for a defense to hold a team to at the rim. So 41% is great. And then in that short mid-range area, that floater area, they did a great job of funneling the Bucks into those shots when Gobert was on the floor for the most part. 7 of 18, 39% in that short mid-range area. Again, forcing 18 shots from that short mid-range area is a great place to be for a defense. And Rudy had a lot to do with it. I thought he was really, really good lurking in the dunker spot in this game and put himself in great position to get offensive rebounds, but also too when offensive players would drive underneath the basket. He was right there. He did a great job of making himself available and coming to the front of the rim when guys would cut and drive from the corners. And thought he was phenomenal setting screens in this game. Created a lot of open runway, especially for TJ Shannon. We'll get into that too. But yeah, I thought this was one of Rudy's better games of the entire year, and it was really important to see. Again, we've talked about it, consistently over the last couple of seasons, really since we've been doing this show, that in games like this where you're playing a far inferior opponent, Rudy has almost always shown up and played really, really well in this game and these types of games. And it was just really, really unfortunate that his co-star Anthony Edwards just did not show up whatsoever in this game after the first quarter. And I think Ant's performance was the reason why they lost this game.
What do you think about some of these new lineups we've seen without DDV, without Julius Conley as well? I think you got an update on Conley for us later. We can touch on that real quick. But what do you think about these new lineups? Is there anything that sticks out for good or bad? Any lineup that is really catching your eye, I guess, or rotation that you like? And then how difficult is it going to be when they do have, obviously it's a great problem to have, but when you do get guys like DDV and Julius back and have to find that chemistry all over again, how tough can that be on a team, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's a blessing and a curse when you have injuries like this, because we probably wouldn't get the emergence of Jalen Clark. We probably wouldn't get the emergence of TJ Shannon like we've seen the last few games here. Mm-hmm. So certainly those guys will see significantly fewer minutes, but it'll be really interesting to see how Chris Finch wants to divvy up minutes really between the main four guys who came off the bench for the Timberwolves tonight, between Jalen Clark, Rob Dillingham, TJ Shannon, and Joe Ingles, because I think you could almost deploy those guys based on matchups. Certainly Mike Conley's not going to play every single game once he comes back, and maybe Dante doesn't play back-to-back games, and so you're going to be able to work in some more of these different types of lineups. But I've really liked the minutes where they've had Jaden at the 4 and Naz at the 5. I think those minutes have been particularly fruitful. They were again tonight. I thought Naz at the 5 was really, really good tonight. And again, for him and Rudy to both have really strong double doubles. I mean, Naz had 22 and 13. Rudy had 20, 14 and 4. Again, for Naz, when Naz was at center tonight and Rudy was off the floor, the Wolves had a defensive rating of 56.5 in those, in those 13-ish minutes. I want to say it was. Let me see here. Yeah, it was about 11 minutes. Defensive rating of 56.5. That's like half, twice that is the league average. So for them to be twice as good as the league average is pretty phenomenal. And just looking at those minutes specifically, the Bucks shot just 5 of 15 from 2 in that stretch. And I thought, when those, with kind of having 3.5, 4 wings around Naz Reid at the center spot, those guys flew around screens and track down shooters for the most part pretty well in those 11 minutes and did a really nice job for my money of running shooters off the line and force them to play below the arc and just take shots that they weren't necessarily accustomed to taking. And some of those shots that went in were pretty tough 2-point makes from Apple Valley native Gary Trent Jr., who was tremendous for the Bucks in a homecoming game. For him, had a team high 21 points on 8 of 12 shooting and was kind of their main source of offense in the half court. But
by the way, Gary Trent Sr. in the crowd wearing the Frank Lucas jacket, by the way, looking baller.
With the fedora on tonight, I think too was awesome.
Yeah.
But again, I've really liked the Jaden Naz front court has been one that's been fun to see. And then being able to get some of the TJ Shannon minutes alongside Jaden and Naz has been fun as a perimeter scoring option. We'll get into TJ a little bit more in the next segment, but I just think that those lineups have played with a really good pace and have done a good job of running off of stops. And if they don't really get full on transition opportunities, they're still kind of forcing semi-transition opportunities where, the defense doesn't get set and you get cross matches where, the Bucks have guys on guards that they don't want to have on guards, or guys on bigs they don't want to have on bigs. So, but we can catch a break, but I want to get into Ant a little bit too.
Yeah, 100%. Plenty more deep dive from this one, including, we'll touch on Terrence Shannon Jr.'s career high night. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance with a huge return, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. Why love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you're placing your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in some NBA future action while you're there. I love this one. Naz Reid, 6 Men of the Year odds, still sitting at 5-1. Feels like great value. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Okay, Jack. Final tidbits on Ant, I guess. Where do you go from here? I guess you just got to take the lumps, I suppose. Got to take the good with the bad nights, I suppose. Or what else? I guess specifically did you see from Ant tonight that you kind of want to cherry pick on?
Yeah, I mean, Ant started 4 of 5 for 11 points. Had 11 of the Wolves' first 13 points. Looked like he was going to cruise to another 35, 40-point game tonight in this game, and then for the rest of the game, proceeded to shoot 5 of 28 from the floor.
Oof.
Absolutely horrendous.
Not bad.
I thought his shot selection tonight was god-awful.
It was tough. Yeah.
You watch TJ Shannon, and I know that TJ Shannon had, was going against some backup guys, but Ryan Rollins and Andre Jackson are not defenders that strike fear into you as Anthony Edwards. And the fact that Ant didn't really get the message to drive downhill and try to get into the lane until the fourth quarter was just disheartening to say, and to say it somewhat nicely was very disheartening.
Yeah.
And I think when Ant finally started to do that, he got an and one in the fourth, which is huge. That I think gave the Wolves a lead, and then created that awesome corner 3-point shot for Naz late in the game on a skip pass that gave the Wolves a 2-point lead with 48 seconds left, and then just completely abandoned that for the rest of the game. I understand he was trying to go 2 for 1 and had a somewhat open mid-range shot over Kyle Kuzma or, over whoever was defending him there. But, you just like to see him get to better looks. And then, I actually didn't hate Chris Finch not calling a timeout, because some of his after timeout stuff, especially at the end of games, have not been good. And the Bucks didn't have any timeouts left. So I think that Chris Finch probably just wanted to try to create something where, the Bucks couldn't get set up on the defensive end of the floor. But, again, I mean, had a somewhat decent look at it, but he's continued to not be good at all on potential game winning or go ahead shots late in the game, especially at least in the regular season. I mean, he's been cash money in the playoffs in big moments, but continues to struggle in the regular season in those games. And I just thought that, Ant took way too many ill-advised shots throughout the entire second half of this game, and just too early in the clock, didn't get his teammates involved enough. I thought he missed Rudy quite a few times when he was open on the roll, and just held the ball on the wing for way too long at different times. And so that's just not going to get it done. I mean, for Ant, he had 23 missed shots in this game. For context, that was by far the most he's had in a game this season. The previous most was 16 in a game he went 8 for 24 in. So for him just continuing to hoist, I understand Naz Reid didn't have his best night shooting from the floor, but and Nickeil didn't necessarily have it either. But I mean, Jaden McDaniels had it going in the fourth quarter too. I don't know why you didn't want to get Jaden more involved. I mean, he had all 10 of his points in the fourth quarter, I think, and was tremendous in the early part of that frame. So for the Wolves to not be able to get, anyone really other than Ant involved in the fourth quarter, I thought was really disappointing, especially considering the shots that Ant was settling for. I mean,
yeah. Let me ask you this, just feeding off that. You put in the chat, Wolves clutch rating 26 in the NBA, minus 9.8 net in clutch. They've got a bona fide quote unquote stud superstar in Ant. They've got some great shooters as well, like Nas to go to. When you see a team in that bottom 10, bottom third in the NBA in clutch rating that do have some bona fide superstars, is there some common characteristics or traits why these teams that can clearly score and have scores struggle so much? Is it play design? Is it Finch maybe perhaps not drawing up the right plays in crunch time? What is it, I guess, that you see kind of just in general with teams that clearly can score and can play well, but struggle when it's crunch time, when they need it the most down late?
Yeah, it's certainly the decision making of the guy who's got the ball in his hands the most, and that's Anthony Edwards. And again, we've seen Ant have stretches where he makes really good decisions with the ball in his hand and does get off the ball and find open teammates and try to get downhill and collapse the defense to get the ball moving around the perimeter and help force the defense to have to work a little bit more in order to get stops. And I just think that they go away from a lot of putting Ant off the ball and, having Rudy set a pin down screen and then getting him the ball in the slot and allowing him to play off the catch. They just don't really do a whole lot of that late in games. And it becomes much more isolation heavy or just one single high, pick and roll with Rudy.
No creativity
with the ball. And then, it's too late in the shot clock to, for other guys really to be able to do a whole lot with it. And so I'd like to see Ant start off the ball a little bit more in some of those moments and then allow him to play off the catch where teams can't double him too much. So that's something that I would really like to see a lot more of. And they've started to run more of that for guys like TJ Shannon and Jaden McDaniels out of the corners. And both of those guys were really good in those actions tonight.
Let's spend the last 2-3 minutes here on my guy, Terrence Shannon Jr. I've been following him since Illinois. You're the basketball expert, but my eyes don't lie. He's just a natural, man. He's just a scorer. He's got that aggressiveness, right? Career high 11 points plus 5 boards, 6 assists. I know he missed a bunny in there, but how impressed were you with his night? And if you're Finch, is he kind of forcing your hand now and making it tough not to find more ways to get him minutes? Or what's kind of the blueprint with him and his development, I guess?
Yeah, totally. I think, he definitely looks like an older rookie, as a guy that's 24, 4 or 5 years older than Rob Dillingham. So again, I think I personally would feel more. I know that I've been saying you got to find minutes for Rob Dillingham, but I agree with this comment here for the comment from Jeff in the sense that I just think that Rob Dillingham has been way too inconsistent at the NBA level for stretches, and I think you'd probably rather just see him play a ton of minutes in Iowa and see if that can help create some more consistency and allow him to, to kind of do some more of the things that you're going to be asking him to do in a much larger sample size against weaker competition to at least help him see what he's supposed to be doing out on the floor at the NBA level. And I would rather try to give minutes. I would rather try to give minutes to a guy like Terrence Shannon. Cause his playmaking looked awesome in this game. And I think the way that he plays with downhill aggression and force when he gets into the paint and does a really good job of using his frame to push defenders off their spot and finish inside. And that's just something that is hard to find, especially in a rookie.
It's a crafty move. Yeah,
totally. And can finish with either hand at the rim. And then what I was most impressed with tonight by far was some of the pick and roll playmaking that we saw from him. I thought that, he did a really good job in the 2-man game, both in more standard pick and roll with Gobert, but then also, in that 2-man handoff game with Nas, where he'd take a handoff from Nas and then Nas would either roll or pop. I thought he did a really good job of knowing where Nas is going to be and kind of feeling out how the defense was going to react to those two guys playing off of one another, and made really good reads all night long. And I thought he should have closed this game over Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I didn't think what Nickeil was doing on defense was, garnered him playing in clutch time over Terrence Shannon, just because, TJ was also really competing his tail off on the defensive end of the floor, flying around shooters. And I think he also definitely could have guarded Kyle Kuzma if you wanted to put Jaden McDaniels on the ball, or you could have put, Naz Reid on Kyle Kuzma, and then had Ant take Bobby Portis. So, there was a lot of different things that you could have done at the end of that game, but I would have had TJ Shannon out there because he was their best source of offense all night long for the most part. Had a team high 6 assists, only 1 turnover, looked super comfortable out there. And again, this Timberwolves team desperately needs more guys that can create transition opportunities kind of out of thin air. And I thought that TJ did a great job of doing that tonight, and tried to get out and run whenever he could, and just has, just kind of has a lightning bolt in his butt, in the sense that, man, when he turns on that second gear, it's just really hard to stick with him either, in transition or in the half court when he gets going downhill. So I'm a big fan of what TJ has been able to do, and has looked super confident in his minutes. And I think that, with someone who's as natural of a scorer and gifted playmaker as he is, more so as a secondary creator playing off of other guys. But when, he had the ball in his hands tonight, he was really, really good. And I see no reason why he can't continue to play really well in a consistent role of, 16 to 20 minutes a game. And I thought that, Joe Ingles, again, is another guy that provided really a sense of calm for the offense, running as that secondary playmaker. And in that second quarter, especially, was really, really good. Had 4 assists and 4 boards tonight. Only made 1 of his 4 threes, but I think those two guys together did a really good job of making up for, just another really tough game for Rob Dillingham, who did not really have it going either as a scorer or as a playmaker, and was rather invisible tonight, and got pulled in the first half because he was just getting killed by Gary Trent Jr. defensively. So I think I would feel the most comfortable playing Terrence Shannon minutes out of any of these guys, just because they're going to need more scoring, especially on a night where Ant didn't have it, Naz didn't have it for most of the night. So
he already looks so polished as
and that's what you'd hope from a 24-year-old.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's part of.
I'll give you an example, man. In the NFL, the Vikes traded up. They took Dallas Turner. Maybe not the first year everybody wanted, but remember, he was one of the youngest players in the draft. He's still only 21 years old. Jared Verse balled out. He'll probably be the defensive rookie of the year for the Rams. He's 24 years old. You expect those guys to come out more polished, just like Shannon and the way he looked in Illinois. He just looks more polished and NBA ready. Dilly, too inconsistent. The goods are great, but the lows, we just can't have that volatility, it feels like right now, with the guys that are injured and not helping. Just too inconsistent for me and my money. So completely with you. Love that you said it. Give me more Terrence Shannon Jr. over Dilly every game from here on out. A couple minutes left. No rest for the Wicked Man. We got to talk about this OKC game tomorrow night. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule, it gets packed with work projects and more, it's so easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they should be more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with the licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, OKC up next on this back-to-back. I mean, clearly the alpha of the league right now. Winners of 7 in a row. 24 of their last 27 they've won, which is just ridiculous to even say that out loud. They got it all, don't they, Jack? Offense, defense, turnover, you name it. Like, what's most impressive about this team, I guess? And if there's any kink in their armor, what is it? How do you attack them, I guess, if you're the Wolves?
Yeah, it's a very difficult it's a very difficult equation to solve. If you're the Timberwolves, I think now that they've got Chet Holmgren back, he rested tonight for the Thunder because it is the front end of a back-to-back for them. All 30 teams in the NBA were in action tonight. But yeah, I think for the Thunder, there really isn't a whole lot of weaknesses that you're able to attack. I
Such a
would say
complete team, aren't they? Yeah.
totally. I think, one thing for me is that this team doesn't really have a second ball handler on their entire roster. And for them, I think you've just got to, if you can shut Shea's water off, I think you've got a chance to be in the game if you're able to make shots. I think they're obviously going to need to shoot better than 22% from three tonight, which was their second worst 3-point shooting night of the season. And I think too that they've just got to be really strong with the ball, because this Thunder team, they dominate teams in the turnover margin. They're number one in the NBA in points off turnovers. They're number one in the NBA in points allowed off of turnovers. They have the second lowest turnover percentage, percentage of their turnovers or percentage of their possessions that result in a turnover offensively. And then they have the best opponents turnover percentage. So they force turnovers at the highest rate, and they're plus 13.6 in points off turnover differential. And that's number one in the NBA by a mile. I think that the defensive pressure that they can put on teams on the perimeter is fantastic. And then, Hartenstein is a really, really good rebounder on the inside and is an underrated rim protector. I think he doesn't get enough credit for what he does on that end of the floor. And then, obviously having Chet back, he's not a guy that is super physically imposing in terms of his strength, but with his length, I think he's a really, really good rim protector in the way that he rotates to make guards feel like they have a shot at the rim. And then the way that he's able to just close ground really quickly and alter and deter shots is really, really special. So I think for the Wolves, they're going to have to, one, do a really good job of taking care of the basketball. I think we saw that for the most part in their previous matchup with the Thunder, before the Thunder just absolutely, blitzed the heck out of them in that third quarter. And they just, flipped a defensive switch that they, I don't know how they flipped it as quick as they did, but they just, became a completely different team on that end of the floor with their ball pressure, especially if Rob Dillingham's going to continue to play minutes. He's got to be really strong with the ball, and they're going to try to double him and force him into uncomfortable situations and force him to make difficult passes around the length and strength and agility that they have up top on the perimeter. So yeah, I think you got to take care of the ball. You got to rebound really well, because this team's been number one in second chance scoring in the NBA over the last 5 at 21 points per game. And then other thing for me is, again, for the Timberwolves, you've just got to do a really, really good job of trying to get out and run. I think the more that you can create easy opportunities for yourselves, this is the number one fast break defense in the NBA, but the more that you can get out and run after the stops that you do force, I think the better off that you're going to be, because this is a Thunder team that sometimes can live and die by the three, similarly to how the Wolves do. And if there's going to be long rebounds off of those threes, there's going to be opportunities to get out and run if they're not knocking down their shots. So I think you got to shut Shea's water off as best you can, protect, the offensive glass. You got to really close out possessions with stops, and you got to take care of the basketball. And I think if you do those three things, you have a chance to be in that game. But who knows? We'll see if OKC decides to send anyone in the second night of a back-to-back. But if Anthony Edwards specifically, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Clark, if those three guys play the way they did tonight, they've got no shot of beating Oklahoma City tomorrow night. So all three of those guys have to be a lot better. And then you hope that you get a similar performance from Rudy, that TJ is ready to roll, and that Naz and Jaden can give you 21 more rebounds, because those two guys were great tonight.
When you lose, to a team like Milwaukee without their two best players by 2 points, when you lose to Washington and Sacramento at home by a combined 4 points, when you lose to Memphis by 2 points, Boston by 3 points, you're going to have to steal some games here in this second half. And you and I already talked about it. We'll talk about it more in depth after tomorrow night's game, but the early slate coming out of the All-Star break, those first 7-8 games, you could even call it 9-10 games, especially with just a gauntlet all on the road as well. They're going to have to steal some games here, man. So whether they win tomorrow night or not, they're going to have to find a way to beat some really good teams and probably beat them on the road as well, too. So
yeah, I mean, you play
yeah.
versus Oklahoma City tomorrow, then you're at Houston versus OKC. At OKC, that second OKC game is the second night of a back-to-back for both teams. At the Lakers, at the Jazz, at the Suns, at home against the 76ers. I mean, that's just a tough slate of games to have to play right out of the break. And I'll tell you what, I hope these guys rest up next week, because they've got an absolute gauntlet waiting for them when they come back. And there's, you look at the standings, and they've got to start picking it up now as these top half of the playoff bracket starts to separate itself from
no room for error now at this point. They've given away too many games. And by the way, on that point too, on that subject, any latest on DDV or Julius? Should we expect both of them back after the All-Star break? One of them, none of them? What's just kind of your intel saying, I guess, as far as those two guys coming back?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd expect Mike Conley to miss tomorrow night's game here in Minnesota. I think he's going to need the All-Star break to let that finger heal up. But yeah, I think for Dante, I think he'll be reevaluated, right away when he comes back from the All-Star break. Same with Julius. It would not surprise me if both of those guys end up coming back and playing, if not the end of this month, then very early next month. I think the Timberwolves should have a 5-6 week period minimum with both of those guys back in the lineup to be able to find some rhythm, hopefully before the playoff run, and hopefully now too, with you feeling a lot better about guys like Clark or Shannon or maybe even Ingles too, that you can at least try to keep Mike as fresh as he can be going into the playoffs, because we know that he kind of flamed out a little bit with some injury stuff in that Dallas series. So I think the healthier that you can keep Mike going into the playoffs and get the best version of Mike Conley going into the playoffs will be really important. So having Dante kind of rested up and worked back into shape, I think will be really important. And then obviously Julius coming back to will give this team an edge and some physicality that they definitely need if they want to continue to get to the free throw line like we've been talking about here these last few games. They broke their streak of getting to the line at least 24 times. Season high 4-game streak for them came to an end tonight. So hopefully they can get back to that after the break once those guys are back.
Great stuff, man. As always, good breakdown there. T-Wolves can't overcome that ice-cold shooting despite, rallying all the way back after a terrible start in the first quarter. Final score versus the Bucks, 103-101. 30-25 now on the year, 5 games above 500. As always, though, huge shout-out to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game, venting with us. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and go follow Jack. He's on X at JRBorman13, live from the Target Center during almost every home game. Again, OKC up next. That's tomorrow night on the back-to-back, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. We'll catch you right here, same time, same place. But until then, signing.